You're listening to the A to Z of Human Performance live show weekdays at 13:30 GMT with Chris Lissaman and resident expert Jonna Sercombe. Please enjoy responsibly. And here he is, our host, Chris Lissaman. Hello, Chris.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks, Jonna. Welcome to Thursday's show. We're 4 in, and I'm delighted that I'm not just joined by Interactive Workshops CEO Jonna Sercombe, but also performance coach Steve Eaton. Welcome to the show.
We've got Steve Eaton sound effect. There's our guest entry, and when it comes to Steve Eaton, we want to say, please enjoy responsibly. We've got to enjoy you responsibly, Steve. We can't enjoy you irresponsibly. We've got to enjoy you super responsibly. Thanks for coming along.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you. And I sounded like a bit of a fairy with that sprinkling of...
Yeah, I think the
magic, Steve magic.
Here he is. So what's on the show today then, Chris?
Well, today we're talking about drive and desire. That's our theme. Look no further than Steve Eaton, I think.
Look no further than Steve Eaton. Yeah, and it's great to have you with us. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Steve. So you're an expert in resilience and stress. Tell us a little bit of your story.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert in it. I certainly have an interest in it, a long-standing interest. It's probably started from a personal interest, but then it's in working with other people, I've sort of moved on to others as well as myself. But I'm always fascinated in some of the things that I've done, some of the good things I've achieved, and some of the bad mistakes that I've made as well. So it's always it's a work in progress. I wouldn't say expert, I'd say work in progress. But
and what have you got lined up for the year ahead, Steve?
Well, it's much of the same as the end of last year, really, I suppose. Having changed a lot of sort of the online, rather the face-to-face deliveries that I get involved in, moving a lot of those to an online sort of forum, if you like. And interestingly, what I'm trying to do more than anything else this year is try to do a blending learning approach. So providing the client with sort of the education, the online learning package, and then doing a face-to-face, either when we get a chance to do it face-to-face, or do it through seminars, and then just try to blend the sort of the learning and the reality, if you like, which is always the key aspect to anything to do with resilience. It's that blending, that sort of the dovetail, if you like, between the two. So yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of blending of virtual and face-to-face. We just can't wait to get back out in the real world, can we? And we're all stuck in our homes again. Great. So thanks very much for joining us, Steve, and great to have you along. Chris, just tell us then, what's coming up in the rest of the week? What have we got left?
We've got left Elevating Endurance is our Friday show, so join us tomorrow for that one. And we're back next week as well. We're here all the way through January, 13:30 GMT, every weekday in January. So join us for that. And Jonna, Steve, you wrote the book together along with Emma Wiggs. Steve, tell us a bit about how the book came about from your perspective.
Well, being involved in writing a book was something that I always said I wouldn't do, and Jonna knows that. But he pursued me, and in the end coerced me, if you like. And I'm really glad I did it. And I got to meet Emma, and during a challenging part of lockdown, supporting others, I suppose, in writing this seemed quite attractive, and I think the way that Jonna comes out, and Jonna's sort of methodologies of a bit of a sprint approach, so it not taking a year to do, let's try and get this done in 6 weeks, that again seemed realistic, and it seemed interesting. And getting to meet the delightful Emma as well as Jonna was fantastic. It was a great experience, and I learned a lot from it as well. So
I'm worried. I thought you were making it sound like really arduous there for a second, but we sat down, didn't we, for an afternoon. Thursday afternoons it was it 2 o'clock, something like that, every Thursday most weeks for about 6-7 weeks. Had a bit of a chat about what we thought was important, and then went off and did some writing. Yeah, but it's really good. And obviously 1st of February book launch, so we're building up to that, and we're excited that you can pre-order that on Kindle. That'd be great.
It's very exciting. I'm sure it wasn't too arduous to work together. Maybe not with Emma, with Jonna maybe a little bit. But,
can be a nightmare, official.
I'm sure it was great fun. Well, we're going to dive into some questions on drive and desire. It's great to have you both on the show. If you missed any of the shows, look back at our YouTube channel. There you'll find them there, and they're also on our website. But for now, let's dive in. Jonna, where does high performance drive come from?
Well, it's a really, really interesting question, isn't it, Chris? And Steve and I have spent so much time thinking about this. We could look at high performance in two different ways, and I think it's really key to think about it in two different ways. We could look at the kind of high performance that Emma is involved with, which is if you were to imagine a bell curve of people, how can I be in the top 1%? How can I be in the top 0.1% of what I do? Which is one kind of description of high performance. And I think some people are really competitively driven to be better than others or to win. And, we know people like that within our team, don't we, that have got a kind of winning drive. And then there's other people that are driven to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And, I'm massively driven by making the most of the opportunities that are presented to me and taking them responsibly. And that's where I get a lot of my drive from, thinking how blessed I am with what I have in my life and who I'm surrounded by and the people that I know and, the clients that we have. How can I maximize take that responsibility? And that's a big driver for me. And then how can I share what's happening, what's good, what I've got? How can I share that with others? As Steve said right in the book, how can we help other people? So, the high performance drive could come from trying to be better than others. And that's very legitimate in some fields. And for others of us, it's about being the best that we can be. And I don't know, Steve, are you competitive as well? I know you're totally motivated by being the best you can be. Have you got a secret winner in there as well, trying to get out and beat other people?
I would like to say no. I don't think I'm actually like that.
You'd like to say no, but is it
I'd
really?
like to say no, but I know that it does come up on the radar. Internally, I know that, I do like to do slightly different things. I do like to do things that other people haven't done. I like to do. I do like to be the best I can be.
Yeah. It's interesting, I think, though, because Nathan and I were out on team building last year, and I keep bringing this up. But one lunchtime, we decided to go out for a run with some of the guys from the company, and it was along the South Downs Way. We're in a beautiful area of West Sussex. We're in a venue with a hot tub. It was brilliant. But we went for this jog, and then there was like 4 or 5 of us, and a couple of people said, well, I'm not really into running, so I'm just going to jog along. And then there was a couple of the younger guys who we suddenly realised, a couple of these grads were actually, they're a little bit behind us, and we just thought, do you know what, let's just push on. Let's just do it. Let's put them to the sword. And so we then upped the pace, and like these young grads were jogging along. We're thinking, this is brilliant. We're actually distancing them. So I think this winning mentality, it's often true in companies. Obviously, in a conflict zone, Steve, you've got to try and win, haven't you, the battle? But whether we do it by being better than other people or beating other people, I think we've got to think ethically about whether that's the best drive.
It's interesting that there's those different drivers. It could be that competitive nature, wanting to beat others, and it could be that kindness and actually wanting others to benefit. What would you say, Steve, is the difference between drive and desire?
Right. Now, it again is another good question, but I think I'm quite a sort of an emotional soul, and I do get that from my dad. I know that, and it did take me quite a lot of time to realize I was that way, but I know that if I want to do something, I can be really quite determined. I know that, so I would say I'm determined rather than competitive,
So is that your desire?
But I think with desire, for me, desire is more about, for me, it's constantly that battle between what's going on in the head and what's going on in the heart. Now, being an emotional type of person, I do rely very much on what I'm feeling, and so I've over the years I've taken a lot of time to try and understand those a bit better, and I would say that drive comes from the sort of the heart. That's my sort of inner drive, my inner push, if you like. Whereas I would say desire is more of a thought. It's more of a, whether it's subconscious or conscious, something that you want to do. But I think this is where the wrestling, sometimes you can be thinking, well, actually, I feel like giving that a go. But in your heart of hearts, it's not potentially perhaps what you want to do. And so for me, I tend to listen to my heart more than my head. Now, clearly that can be good and bad in certain times. I like to think that I can use my head effectively when I need to, in terms of being rational or making good decisions. I can do that. So I'm not overly emotional all the time, but I know that my inner drive is actually really quite strong. And if I try to oppose it, then it doesn't always work. And I find myself doing things that I perhaps realize I shouldn't.
Yeah. And you must have met some people with some incredible drive and desire as well.
I have, yeah, in lots of different fields. And of course, even though, the bottom line is, and I suppose the fact is that we're human. And so, our emotions and our sort of our mental skills do play out, but of course, within high performance, being able to use technical skills is really, really important. The reasons for using that, again, is really, really important. So I think that balance between different people is really an important point. Yeah,
you're saying that's so key, isn't it? The difference. You've got to be motivated about the thing that you're doing and driven by that. But also you have to be driven then to assimilate the skills. And I think that's one of the things that the high performers do is because they're motivated by the thing that they're working on, they then assimilate the skills and they're motivated to learn the skills and develop. And I think to learn and develop skills requires us to admit that we're not necessarily as good at something as we could be, which is sometimes confronting to us as well, and say, okay, how can I improve at this? But if you can get on board that pathway and then do that consistently, that's where you get from A to Z and get to the highest level. But I was thinking also that, there are people that get really good at something and then they get this high performance ability and then they can switch it into other fields. In the world of cycling, Primož Roglič has just done really well this last year. Slovenian cyclist, one of the top cyclists in the world, topping a couple of Grand Tours, right up there. But a few years ago, he was a top down ski jumper. And so he's worked out how to perform at a high level and then flicked that over to a different discipline. I mean, another example would be Kylian Jornet, the ultra runner, who's also he'd be the fastest ever ascent of Mount Everest from base to peak. It's interesting that certain people have this ability to become high performance at something and then are able to transfer the skill of being a high performer to other disciplines. And I guess there's a lot of that's a lot to do with their drives and desires and their ability to push to be the best.
I'm hearing a lot about drive, a lot about determination and motivation. Is it that we should be driven all the time, Jonna?
I don't think we can be. I mean, I'm thinking Chessington World of Adventures, it's a roller coaster. I would consider myself extremely motivated and very driven. And yet, in 2017, for example, I kind of got tired of running the company that I started. And I did a lot of soul searching and thinking, why am I doing this? What am I here for? Why don't I wake up in the morning with that feeling that's going to motivate me to do the things that I should do if I'm running an organization or if I'm working on projects? I lost the buzz of being in the training room. Why does going to visit a group of 20 people to help them be better leaders, why is that gone? And I'd spent a lot of time sort of trying to soul search as to why I'd lost my mojo, a bit like Austin Powers. And, I realized that it had become too easy. It wasn't difficult enough anymore and it wasn't challenging. And I was a little bit bored because I'd mastered a lot of the skills and wasn't a lot left to learn. So paying attention to when we're starting to lose that drive, I think, is key. And some of the people that I've worked with across business, I've worked with execs in some of the world's top companies, and they lost the drive years ago, and they basically fake it till they make it. And I remember a few conversations where very fully grown adults, age 55 years old, when you point that out to them, say, you do realize you've been faking this for basically 15, 20 years, and you're 55. You've got another 15 or 20 years of work to do. Are you going to be able to fake this for another 20 years? Because that's your whole life. And that can kind of make you break down in tears a bit, can't you, when you realize, actually, you know what, I'm not actually motivated by what I do, and I'm not driven by it, and I don't desire to be here anymore. Actually, I'd rather be somewhere else or doing something else. So yeah, this even the most motivated people, I must have read 200 biographies of high performers. They all question why they're doing what they do and run out of steam at some point. And it's key to this skill to be able to refocus on something else. And it might be within the same field, but how do I refocus or change my deadline or change my goal so that I'm feeling excited by what's in front of me? What do you think, Steve? Have you been through those moments? I mean, you've had a couple of, at least, careers.
Absolutely, and I'd say it's absolutely key. High performers, the ones I've come across that truly do perform. As Jonna said, it is a roller coaster. We're human and we get things wrong. we get tired, we lose focus, and all those good things. We go through all types of adversity with being struck down with grief or whatever, losing family members or whatever, so there's lots of things to take into account in life per se. But I think that the best sort of high performers are those people that are able to decide, when to focus on something that's really important, and then when able to take the foot off the gas and be able to sort of sit back and reflect. John has just said there, about checking in sometimes and going, right, where is it? Where am I? How am I feeling today? Am I still enjoying what I'm doing? Do I still believe in what I'm doing? And I'm sure, within this COVID crisis, there are so many people searching through their heart, their soul, am I doing the right thing? And especially at a time where, through fear, they're starting to lose perhaps, some of the cognitive skills that they rely on, some of the rationality behind what they do. I think, having that ability to take your foot off the gas, difficult as it may be at times, is absolutely key to recovery, and I think this for me is a constant battle when working, with other people. It's trying to convince people that actually rest and recovery, like sleep, or even, a bit of mindfulness or walking home instead of driving home type thing, having those times to reflect and to check in that you're doing the right thing, but actually considering the recovery as a sort of active recovery, as a colleague of mine, Andy McCann, calls it. It's about actively recovering in order to perform better. So it's not being lazy or...
No, it's almost switching off desire intentionally for your own benefit.
Totally. To recharge the batteries. And there are so many ways, but a lot of people sort of don't listen to their bodies, and they just think that, let's work longer in the office because it means I'll achieve more. Whereas actually, you're not necessarily achieving more, and you're using more of your batteries, your cognitive skills that require around creativity, around decision making, being a good leader. All those good things can go out the window because you haven't rested and recovered enough.
Really. I mean, it's just so key, Steve. I mean, it's pointing out also that as you said, that if we're under stress, our bodies and our minds are actually a bit confused. We can't make good decisions. It's not easy to make good decisions. And I think especially when people feel they've lost their desire, if they're stressed at work, it's a difficult moment and they don't like their boss, or there's difficult projects, it can be really easy then to make bad decisions. And Emma always asks this question, and it's stuck in my head for the last 3 or 4 years. I've worked with her. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And in any given moment on a bad day, we can ask that and we come up with the answer no. But that question, what she's saying is that is the effort that I'm going to put into this, is the outcome that I'm going to get from it, is that going to be worth it? And if it is, it's worth committing to. And Emma's probably even a higher level of committer than me and Steve. She really commits, and she fully commits. And these Olympic athletes, they make a kind of strategic decision every 4 years as to whether they're going to commit to the Olympic cycle. And I think that's helpful also for us to sometimes think when we're not enjoying our work or there's a difficult thing going on at home. Like, I don't know, let's say you're having a difficult time in your marriage. It's a long-term commitment. Okay, is the juice worth the squeeze? Well, it might be really difficult today, but this is a long-term thing. And I know for me in kind of business planning, having a medium-term horizon, actually what happened to me, then I didn't have to keep asking that question anymore. I need to put that question away for a bit and say, okay, I've asked it, I set out a plan, and now I'm going to follow that performance pathway, and I'm going to go for those results. And then afterwards, I'll evaluate whether I still enjoy doing this, rather than waking up every day and saying, oh, is this really what I want to do? Because that unanswered question is actually really toxic to our motivation, because
it's exhausting.
In each moment we don't commit, we're then just, in a kind of state where we're not committed to what we're doing, and therefore we don't get the best out of ourselves. I don't know if you agree with that, Steve. Some people just ask that question all the time. Is this really what I want to do? Why am I doing this? And unfortunately, they don't come to an answer on that and what it is that I want to do and why I am doing it.
Yeah, and I think that side of things is almost a habit that somebody's got themselves into. Is that it's just that constant reaffirmation that they're doing the correct thing. They know they are, or they, and this is where I think it's getting that balance. It's learning to sort of listen to whether it's your head or your heart that's doing it. Who's asking the questions here? Is it something that's coming from in here, or is it something that's coming in from in here? And is it something I want to do? Is it a habit I want to have, or do I need to change that habit? Do I need to, change the way I think about these things? Which of course we can do if we want to.
Yeah.
Um,
Emma also talks about drive being fruitless without direction. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a paradox to me, Chris. Some people are feeling like I can never find my direction. I think it's again like, why does this job motivate me? Some of these are quite difficult questions. Like, am I doing the right thing? Have I got the right direction in life? I would go with Steve. I think it's an inner feeling. You kind of know if you're on the right path. And look around you. Are the people you're with good people? Are you good at the thing you do? Do you get the right kickbacks for the effort that you put in? Is it sustainable? These are the things you can ask. But to get the direction, is there any reason why, Emma? Is there anything particular purpose behind being a Paralympic canoeist? Is that like, what's the higher purpose of that? You could ask, well, it's pointless, isn't it? It's just paddling a boat as fast as you can. Or in our case, running a company that helps people to do a bit better job. It could be considered relatively fruitless. So I think on like a real philosophical level, you could go up and say, well, everything's pretty much pointless. In the end, we all shuffled off this earth at some point. But actually, we've got to find our thing that we're purposeful for and a direction. And if we've got a direction, then it helps us to keep motoring. And let's think about Steve going out running in the morning. Like, we don't always want to go on a cold day, do we, Steve? But like, you mentally pick a route or something, and you think, well, I'll go around that one then. But if you stood on the driveway and said, where shall I run? Oh, shall I really do this? Do I really like running? You'll see me back in the house, right?
Yeah.
Did you get out yesterday?
You're so right. This morning I did. Yeah.
This morning, was it cold out there?
It was freezing. Yeah, but it was great. But I know that doing that is good for me, and I know when I'm out there, I can think a bit better. I can be brutally honest with myself, which is really important at times, but I think it's but come back to your point there, John. I think about purpose. Purpose is not just a nice to have. It's actually absolutely key to living a full and fulfilling life as a human being, for the time, and survival sits at the very basis of being a person, and so leading that purposeful life, where you're able to look after yourself, look after your family, support other people, are huge things for humans, and without them, certainly within a social construct, without them, we don't feel, we almost don't feel human, because being connected and having that purpose is part of being a human being. And so, it is a key factor. And when I think of some of the military veterans that I've worked with over the years, losing that purpose when, for instance, if they've left the military through injury, renewing or refinding that purpose is absolutely central to them moving forward in life, and you see so many guys and girls that sort of go along a route because they think it's what they should do, or what somebody else has thought is a good thing for them, but then you see them sort of come back and go, oh my God, I've just wasted my time doing that, because actually I knew that it wasn't right for me, but I was unsure, so I sort of went for it, instead of sitting down and giving it some really good thought, listening to the body. What is it I want to do? What would I love to do? What is possible? Having purpose is absolutely central.
Yeah. That's been a theme that's come up.
Moment, I was just going to dive in, because it's a very difficult moment, though, isn't it, when you're changing career, especially if you've done something that's really fulfilling and super consuming, and then it's almost like you can't find anything else that gives you that feeling. And I think if you are in a career change moment, that question can be really difficult as well. Like, what can I do that was as good as what I have been doing? And you see people when they retire also, they struggle with that, or perhaps if you become a parent and work stops being the main focus. But I think that's also, sometimes we just got to get momentum and then work on the direction afterwards. And so both strategies are worthwhile, but to be constantly tuned in to our inner experience, I think is really important in that.
I've got to share just a few minutes to go. Before we came on air, Jonna and Steve were talking about their recent cycling escapades.
We must.
Jonna, you're a keen cyclist. How far did you go recently?
We got into a bit of talk about cycling. No, I was just saying that I went for a long cycle ride at the weekend, and I was motivated to do it, but between a kilometre 125 and 175, my desires and drives disappeared. And I was just sharing with Steve that was a tough experience. And then Steve chips in. What was the cycle ride that you did, Steve? It wasn't at the weekend though, but
no, it wasn't this week. No, it was 300 miles in 24 hours.
300 mal.
Yeah.
Well, I will commit. I'm going to do.
Apparently, for cyclists, is a sort of magical figure.
I'm going to do 500 kilometers in 24 hours at some point this year because I've already committed to do that. But I know how much I'm going to suffer because I couldn't have cycled another 50 after the one I did at the weekend.
Steve, what was the desire behind that 300 miles?
Well, the desire really was to support a friend of mine that wanted to do it. I'm not a keen. I get bored really easily with cycling, and so it wasn't something that I would have chosen myself, but I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do. But I did learn a huge lesson that in doing something, and I suppose, when you look at desire and drive, in that, my desire, I suppose, was to support my friend in doing what
it's a powerful motivator.
And it is absolutely. And that's what kept me going. No question.
Yeah.
But actually internally, I found it really dull, and it rained for 17 hours, some of it torrential. It was very boring. It wasn't even a pretty route. But what I found really interesting is the danger of trying to fulfill other people's dreams, where actually internally here, the drive wasn't there as much as it was for him because it was his dream, not my dream, and drives, and so it was a really interesting experience. And
it comes back to checking. I know we've only
got a couple of minutes left, but Steve, there's also the counterpoint, isn't there? Sometimes when someone else makes us do something that we don't want to do, and then we do it, sometimes we realize, wow, this is really what I want to do. And I know in the pre-show we're discussing also, I had that when it comes to selling. Like, I used to think I didn't want to work in sales, and that, I'd rather work in leadership development or learning development or marketing or whatever, but not sales. And I used to even train salespeople thinking, I'm glad I don't have to work in sales. And then actually once I started on in sales, it's like, wow, this is great. I've been forced to do it now and love it. And it can be interesting. I think we are a social animal, and it's really, some people become very narrow focused and they're not actually open to trying other things and doing things differently. But if we can follow along with other people's desires, sometimes it takes us to a completely different space. And then we're thinking like, this is great. So, we don't want to become so focused that we close off, or so stubborn that we don't accept other people's challenges. And it is a bit of a paradox, because it's also, in the end, we've got to follow our own path, but that path can be driven by other people. And I think also, just one final thing, sometimes as a manager or leader, I know we've got people from business on this listening in, and I know, sometimes putting targets in front of other people is necessary for them to be driven. And if you keep saying to a sales team, so what do you think you can achieve this year? It's never the same as if you say, this is what you've got to achieve, this is what your figures are. You certainly want to get that motivation from them, but to put in place a target, and especially if other people have a similar target, there's a big peer pressure. And as a social animal, that kind of is motivating to us as well. So maybe that's coming from the outside, but it's key to find our internal motivators. But sometimes as a leader, you've got to put these in place. And I guess that's helpful for other people. It stops them asking, like, what should I do? It's like, there it is. There's the goal.
Well, I could talk to you both very driven people all day, but is all we've got time for. And perhaps people don't quite desire an all-day show just yet. So we're going to wrap up. Thank you both for joining me.
Steve did great, didn't he? Yeah, go Steve. Really, great to see you all. See you tomorrow. What's up tomorrow, Chris?
We are on elevating endurance.
All about endurance.
All about endurance.
We'll see you there.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you.